Ladies and gentlemen, time, my friends, is one of the most precious commodities we have on this earth. We often take it for granted, believing we have all the time in the world. But let me tell you this: time is a gift tone that is finite, fleeting, and yet so incredibly powerful. Today, I want to speak to you about time, not just as a concept or something we experience, but as something that shapes who we are and who we are becoming. As you sit here today, think for a moment: how are you spending your time? What are the choices you're making with the minutes, the hours, the days, the years that you've been given? You see, every moment is a chance to change the course of your life, to make a difference, and to align your life with purpose. But to do so, we must first understand the nature of time. Time does not wait for anyone. It marches on regardless of our plans or wishes. We cannot pause it, rewind it, or speed it up. It is a constant flow, and once a moment passes, it is gone forever. There's no going back, there's no second chance. When you realize that, when you understand the urgency of time, you begin to see how critical it is to make the most of every moment. The Bible speaks clearly about the fleeting nature of time. In Psalm 90-12, it says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." In other words, we must understand how brief life is, how each day counts, and how our time here on earth is limited. When we begin to view time through this lens, we begin to live differently. We live with purpose. We live with urgency. And we live in the knowledge that each day is an opportunity to serve, to grow, and to honor God. But it's not just about counting the days, it's about making the days count. Many people look back at their lives and wonder where all the time went. They look back with regret, wishing they had made different choices, wishing they had spent more time with their loved ones, or wishing they had pursued their dream. The truth is, many of us waste time in pursuit of things that do not matter, things that do not last. We get distracted by the busyness of life, by the noise and the demands of the world around us. But let me encourage you today. You don't have to live that way. You can choose to live with purpose, with focus, and with intentionality. Time is everything, and how you spend it matters more than you might realize. If we are honest with ourselves, we all have areas in our lives where we waste time, things we do, or people we interact with that don't help us grow, or move us closer to the life God has called us to. We must be intentional about how we spend our time. Jesus himself showed us this in his life. He lived with purpose. He knew his time on earth was limited, and he made every moment count. Jesus knew that his mission was clear. He came to seek and save the lost, to reveal the Father's love to the world, and to lay down his life for us. Every moment was a step toward fulfilling that mission. And yet, Jesus didn't rush through his days in a frantic attempt to accomplish everything. No, he was deliberate. He knew the value of every conversation, of every act of kindness, and of every time he withdrew to pray and spend time with the Father. Jesus understood that time wasn't just something to fill up with activity. It was an opportunity to fulfill the calling God had placed on his life. What about you? Do you live with that kind of purpose? Are you intentional about how you use your time? Are you investing your time in things that will last, things that will matter for eternity? Or are you caught up in the rush of life, distracted by things that won't bring true fulfillment or lasting joy? I want to remind you today that God has a purpose for your life. He has called you to something greater than simply existing, greater than just getting through the day. He has a plan, and he is using every moment, every day to shape you into the person he has created you to be. But in order to walk in that plan, you must be intentional with your time. One of the most powerful things you can do with your time is to invest it in relationships with your family, with your friends, and with those you come in contact with on a daily basis. Time spent loving others, encouraging others, and helping others is never wasted. In fact, it is one of the most valuable uses of your time. The Apostle Paul wrote in Ephesians 5:15, -16, "Be very careful then How you live not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. We must make the most of every opportunity, knowing that our time here on earth is limited. But it's not just about what you do for others, it's also about what you do for yourself. We can only give so much of ourselves before we burn out. That's why it's essential to spend time taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The Bible tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves, which means we must first love and care for ourselves in a way that honors God. Taking time to rest, to recharge, and to seek God in prayer and through His Word is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Without this time, you cannot effectively fulfill the calling God has placed on your life. I know that life is busy. I know that many of you are juggling responsibilities, facing challenges, and trying to make sense of everything that's happening around you. But I urge you to not let the busyness of life steal your time. The devil wants nothing more than for you to be so distracted that you miss out on what truly matters. Don't let him rob you of your time. Instead, take charge of your time. Be intentional with how you use it and make every moment count. In this world, there are countless distractions vying for your attention. The world will tell you that success is measured by how much you accomplish, how much you have, or how much you can do. But the truth is, success is measured by the impact you have on others and the way you live in alignment with God's will for your life. And none of that can happen if you're not intentional with your time. I want to challenge you today to take a hard look at how you are spending your time. Are you making the most of the moments you've been given? Are you prioritizing what truly matters? Are you living with purpose and intentionality, or are you letting life slip by without truly living? As we reflect on time, remember this: it's not how much time you have, but what you do with the time you've been given. Time is everything. It's the canvas upon which you paint the story of your life. And when you choose to make every moment count, you begin to experience the fullness of life that God intended for you. So, let me ask you, how will you spend your time today? What choices will you make in the moments you have right now? Time is precious, time is fleeting, and time is everything. Let's not waste it. Let's make it count for something that will last for our families, for our communities, and for the kingdom of God. God has given us this gift of time. Let's use it wisely, and let's live each moment with purpose, knowing that every second brings us closer to becoming the people God has called us to be. The question is, what will you do with the time you've been given? The answer lies in your hands. Will you make it count? The speech emphasizes that time is one of the most valuable resources we have, and it is fleeting. We are reminded that once a moment passes, it's gone forever, and how we spend our time shapes who we are and who we are becoming. It calls for intentional living, where every moment is used wisely and with purpose to honor God and fulfill our calling. The speech urges us to be deliberate with our time, aligning our actions with God's will, investing in meaningful relationships, and prioritizing what truly matters. It challenges us to focus on making every moment count, not getting caught up in distractions, but living with a clear sense of purpose that impacts our lives and the lives of those around us. Time is often seen as something that stretches endlessly before us, something we believe we can control, bend, or stretch at our will. However, the reality is far different. Time is not a limitless resource. It is fleeting, and once it passes, it can never be reclaimed. The very essence of life itself is bound by time, and it is one of the few things in the world that we cannot manipulate. The world around us is constantly changing, and every minute that ticks away represents an irreversible step forward. This truth should not fill us with anxiety or despair. Rather, it should stir us to recognize the immense value of time and the need to use it wisely. Every moment we live is a gift. It is easy to overlook this because we are caught up in the busyness of our daily lives, rushing from one task to the next, constantly checking the clock or calendar. believing there will always be more time tomorrow. Yet the Bible tells us that our time is limited. Psalm 90-12 reminds us, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." This verse invites us to reflect on the brevity of life. It calls us to recognize the passing of our days as a precious opportunity to live wisely. When we learn to number our days, we begin to value each moment for the gift that it is. The challenge, however, is how to do this in a world full of distractions and demand. In life, we often focus on the big milestones, graduations, weddings, career advancements, but we overlook the small moments that accumulate into a life well lived. Every decision, every interaction, and every prayer contributes to the story we tell with our time. It is in the small, seemingly insignificant choices that the true impact of our time is felt, whether it's spending a few extra minutes with a loved one, taking time to listen to someone in need, or simply pausing to appreciate the beauty of the world around us. These moments often have the most lasting impact. When we become aware of the value of time, we begin to cherish the present and stop worrying so much about the future or regretting the past. There is an urgency to this truth that cannot be ignored. Time is a non-renewable resource. While we may be able to replace a lost item or mend a broken relationship, we cannot replace lost time. Once a minute passes, it is gone forever. Imagine that every second, every minute, every hour is a precious coin in your hand. Would you waste it? Would you squander on things that don't matter? Would you throw it away on things that won't contribute to your growth, your happiness, or your purpose? The answer for most of us is no, we would not. Yet so often we do just that, allowing time to slip away in the distractions of life, in procrastination, or in the pursuit of things that ultimately don't satisfy. But the urgency is not meant to cause fear. It's meant to spur us into action. The Bible teaches us that we must be good stewards of everything God has entrusted to us, and time is no exception. In Ephesians 5:15, -16, we are instructed, "Be very careful then how you live not as unwise but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil." The call here is not simply to avoid wasting time, but to actively make the most of it. This doesn't mean filling every minute with activity or striving to be constantly busy. Rather, it means being intentional with our time, choosing to spend it on things that matter. It means investing in relationships, nurturing our physical and emotional well-being, and seeking the kingdom of God in every area of our life. Time is a gift, and it is a gift that God has given to everyone equally. Regardless of our status, wealth, or position in life, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. What makes the difference is how we use those hours. Some people waste time, fritter it away on trivial pursuits, and at the end of their lives look back with regret. Others, though, recognize the gift they've been given and choose to live intentionally, using each moment to serve, to grow, and to impact others. The choice is ours. One of the key challenges in recognizing the value of time is the tendency to procrastinate. We put things off, telling ourselves that we will have more time later. We delay pursuing our dreams, taking care of our health, or deepening our spiritual lives because we assume that tomorrow will be better. The truth, however, is that tomorrow is never guaranteed. Our lives are not promised another day, another year, another moment. This is why it is so important to live in the present. We must learn to seize the moment, to act now, to take advantage of the opportunities that are before us. Living with a sense of urgency doesn't mean living in a constant state of stress or hurry. It means being mindful of the time we are given and using it with purpose. It means saying no to distractions that do not contribute to our goals and saying yes to the things that align with God's purpose for our lives. It also means having the wisdom to rest when needed and to give ourselves grace. Time is not just about doing more, it is also about being more. It's about being present in the moment, giving your attention fully to the people and activities that matter, and being intentional with your energy. There is also something beautiful about embracing the fact that time is limited. It causes us to focus on what truly matters. If we truly grasp the fleeting nature of our time, we would spend more of it nurturing our relationships, helping those in need, and deepening our relationship with God. We would stop chasing after things that do not bring lasting fulfillment and would instead seek to make an eternal impact with our time. Life is short. Our time here is but a vapor. The Apostle James reminds us in James 4:14, "What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." This doesn't mean we should live in fear or anxiety, but it should make us aware of the urgency of our time on earth. If we can learn to recognize the brevity of life, we will be motivated to live differently. We will make more intentional decisions, prioritizing the things that matter most. We will pour our time into relationships that are meaningful, invest in the growth of our character, and use our time to serve others and fulfill God's will for our life. Time, when used wisely, can become a powerful tool for transforming our lives and the lives of those around us. It's easy to forget how precious time is when we are caught up in the routines and responsibilities of everyday life. But when we stop and reflect, when we truly consider the value of each moment, we begin to see our time for what it truly is, a gift. And when we see time as a gift, we can begin to live with intention, focus, and a renewed sense of purpose. The way we spend our time shapes who we are and who we are becoming. It influences our relationships, our health, and our impact on the world. Time is everything, and how we use it makes all the difference. Living with purpose and intentionality is one of the most powerful ways to make the most of the time we've been given. The world around us often encourages us to live in a state of reaction, simply responding to whatever comes our way. We are bombarded with distractions, pressures, and the noise of daily life. And as a result, many of us float from one day to the next without ever truly considering the purpose behind our actions. But when we live intentionally, we become active participants in shaping our lives, choosing how to spend our time in alignment with what truly matters. Living intentionally begins with understanding that we are not here by accident. Each of us has been created with purpose, and within that purpose is a call to use our time in a way that reflects our values, our faith, and the legacy we wish to leave behind. When we live intentionally, we don't just let life happen to us. We take ownership of our choices and decisions. We decide where our time and energy will go. This requires mindfulness and awareness, the willingness to pause and reflect on what truly matters, and the courage to say no to things that don't contribute to our higher goals. One of the key aspects of living intentionally is setting priorities. In a world filled with endless demands, it's easy to get swept up in the current of busyness, but not all busyness is productive, and not all activities are aligned with what we truly value. The first step in living with purpose is to identify the things that matter most to you. This may include your relationship with God, your family, your health, your work, or your personal growth. Whatever your priorities are, they need to be reflected in how you spend your time. If you say that family is important to you, but you spend all your time at work and neglect your relationships at home, then your actions are not in alignment with your values. When your actions and values align, you begin to live more intentionally, and you will see the fruit of those choices over time. In setting priorities, it is essential to recognize that not everything can be a priority. Many people fall into the trap of trying to do everything at once, saying yes to every opportunity and every request. But the truth is, there are only so many hours in a day, and if we spread ourselves too thin, we will find ourselves overwhelmed, stressed, and ultimately unproductive. Learning to say no is just as important as learning to say yes. By saying no to the things that do not align with your priorities, you free up time and energy for the things that truly matter. This doesn't mean we become selfish or neglect our responsibilities, but it does mean we are mindful of how we invest our time. Intentional living also involves embracing the present moment. So often we get caught up in worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. We make plans for what we want to do someday, or we regret the opportunities we missed in the past. But the truth is that the only time we truly have is the present moment. Jesus himself taught us not to worry about tomorrow. In Matthew 6:34, he says, "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Each day has enough trouble of its own. When we focus on the present, we free ourselves from the weight of past mistakes and the anxiety about the future. We begin to embrace the opportunities that are right in front of us, knowing that today is all we can control. This doesn't mean we abandon our future goals or ignore the lessons of the past. Rather, it means we live with a sense of awareness and gratitude for the present. When we live in the moment, we are more likely to recognize the small blessings that surround us every day. We notice the beauty in a sunset, the joy in a conversation with a friend, or the peace that comes from a quiet moment of reflection. Living intentionally means that we are fully engaged in our lives, not distracted by what could be or what has been, but present to what is. Another key component of intentional living is the pursuit of personal growth. If we are not intentional about growing, we risk stagnating in life. Growth doesn't happen by accident, it requires deliberate action. Whether it's growing in our knowledge of God's Word, improving our physical health, developing new skills, or cultivating emotional resilience, personal growth is a continual process. To live intentionally, we must commit to learning, improving, and becoming better versions of ourselves each day. This requires setting goals, working toward them, and taking steps every day to move forward. Small, consistent efforts over time can lead to significant transformation. At the same time, living with purpose means we are mindful of our impact on others. We don't live solely for ourselves. We live in community, and our actions have the power to influence those around us. When we live intentionally, we take time to consider how our words, actions, and decisions affect others. We choose to show kindness, offer encouragement, and be a source of support for those in need. Living with purpose is not about striving for personal gain, but about using our time and talents to serve others and make a positive difference in the world. As Jesus taught us, the greatest among us is the one who serves. When we choose to live for the benefit of others, we find that our lives become richer, fuller, and more meaningful. Another aspect of intentional living is the ability to set boundaries. In a world that constantly demands more of us, it is crucial to recognize our limits. We cannot do everything, and we should not try. Setting boundaries allows us to protect our time and energy so that we can focus on what truly matters. This may mean setting limits at work, saying no to social invitations that drain us, or taking time for ourselves when we need rest. Boundaries are not about being selfish. They are about preserving our well-being and ensuring that we have the capacity to serve others with love and grace. When we set boundaries, we create space in our lives for what is truly important. Living with purpose also requires that we reflect regularly on our actions and decisions. We must ask ourselves if the way we are spending our time aligns with our values and goals. Reflection allows us to course correct when we find ourselves veering off track. It gives us the opportunity to celebrate the progress we've made and to adjust our priorities when necessary. Without reflection, we risk drifting through life without ever truly examining how we are spending our time or whether it's contributing to our overall purpose. Regular reflection is a powerful tool that helps us stay focused and intentional in our journey. To live intentionally is not always easy. It requires discipline, self-awareness, and a willingness to make tough decisions. It means being willing to let go of distractions, to take the time to prioritize what truly matters, and to invest in the things that will have lasting value. But the rewards of living with purpose are immeasurable. When we live intentionally, we find greater peace, fulfillment, and a sense of direction. We become more aligned with God's will for our lives, and we use our time in a way that brings glory to Him and makes a difference in the world.